The fluorescent lights of Daisy's diner flickered above the empty tables, casting a pale glow over the worn linoleum floor in rural Georgia. It was 10:45 p.m., and Monica Harris, a 32-year-old Black American woman, wiped down the counter with a damp cloth, her dark skin glistening with a thin sheen of sweat from a long shift. Her braided hair pulled back in a practical bun framed a face etched with exhaustion and determination. Her worn sneakers pressed against the floor as she moved, each step a reminder of the double shifts she pulled to make ends meet. The diner, a small haven in a town where whispers of judgment often followed her, as a Black single mother, was quiet, except for the refrigerator's hum and the faint clatter of pots from the kitchen. Monica paused, her deep brown eyes falling on a crumpled court notice tucked in her apron pocket. She unfolded it carefully, her fingers tracing the words, "Custody hearing, July 15th. 3 weeks. 3 weeks to prove she could reclaim her son Jamal, a bright-eyed 7-year-old with her same rich brown skin and infectious smile. Her ex-husband Derek, a 35-year-old white lawyer with a sharp tongue and sharper suits, had leveraged his wealth and influence to gain temporary custody after their bitter divorce. The court's decision had stung, a silent accusation that her waitress job and modest income made her less fit to raise her son. As a Black woman in a predominantly white town, Monica felt the weight of systemic bias, the unspoken assumption that her love for Jamal wasn't enough. Her phone buzzed on the counter, pulling her from her thoughts. A text from Derek lit up the screen, a photo of Jamal, his gap-toothed grin beaming as he held a soccer ball. The caption cut like a knife. "He's better off with me now." Monica's chest tightened, her breath catching as she stared at her son's face. She could still hear his laughter and smell the faint scent of his favorite strawberry shampoo. The message was Derek's latest jab, a reminder of his power to keep Jamal from her. She tucked the phone away, her resolve hardening. She'd fight for her son, no matter the odds. "Hey Monica, you okay?" called Roberto, the 40-year-old Hispanic cook from the kitchen. His voice carried the warmth of someone who'd seen her struggle, but never pried. "The place is cleaner than a hospital. Go home." "I'm fine," she lied, forcing a smile and just finishing up. Roberto poked his head out, his apron stained with grease. "You sure I can lock up?" She shook her head, needing the routine to keep her grounded. "I got this. Get some rest." As Roberto disappeared through the back door, Monica glanced at the empty diner, the silence amplifying her thoughts. She wasn't just fighting Derek. She was fighting a system that scrutinized her every move as a Black mother. The court notice felt heavier in her pocket, a ticking clock counting down to July 15th. She wiped the counter again, more out of habit than necessity, her mind racing with what-ifs. What if she lost Jamal for good? What if her love wasn't enough to sway a judge who saw her only as a low-income waitress? The diner's bell jingled, snapping her back to the present. A tall man stepped inside, dusting dirt from his boots. William Carter, a 48-year-old white American farmer, wore a faded plaid shirt and a weathered cowboy hat that shaded his tanned face. His graying hair peeked out at the temples, and his blue eyes carried a quiet strength. He looked around the empty diner, his presence starkly contrasted to the stillness. "Sorry, we're closing," Monica said, clutching her cloth. "Just coffee," William replied, his voice deep and calm. "Been driving for 5 hours. Need to stay awake for one more." Monica hesitated, her instinct to send him away warring with the kindness in his tone. She nodded and poured a cup, her movements practiced, but weary. William sat at the counter, removing his hat to reveal lines etched around his eyes from years under the Georgia sun. He sipped the coffee slowly, his gaze drifting to the window where the full moon lit the empty parking lot. "Thanks," he said, catching her name tag. Monica, right? She nodded, returning to her cleaning, but his presence lingered, disrupting her routine. When he finished, he placed a $20 bill on the counter for a $3.50 coffee. Keep the change, he said, standing. Everyone needs a little extra sometimes. You don't have to. Monica protested, her pride prickling. William smiled faintly. I know. He tipped his hat and left the bell jingling behind him. Monica stared at the bill, her fingers brushing the court notice in her pocket. The small act of kindness felt like a lifeline, a reminder that hope could come from unexpected places. She tucked the money away, her heart a fraction lighter. As she locked up the diner, the moon cast a soft glow over the parking lot, and she whispered to herself, for Jamal. Hey, if Monica's story resonates with you, drop a like to show some love for her fight. Comment below. What would you do in her shoes? And if you're rooting for her to win back? Jamal hit that subscribe button to follow her journey. In the next part, the clock above Daisy's diner ticked past 11 p.m., its hands slicing through the quiet that blanketed the empty restaurant. Monica Harris swept the floor, the broom's bristles scraping softly against the linoleum. Her muscles ached from hours on her feet, but her mind was elsewhere, tethered to the court notice in her apron pocket. The words July 15th echoed in her thoughts, a deadline that loomed like a storm cloud over her hope of reuniting with her son Jamal. The diner's fluorescent glow felt colder now, the silence amplifying her fears of losing him to Derek's wealth and influence. The bell above the door jingled, cutting through the stillness. Monica turned her grip, tightening on the broom. A tall figure stepped inside, dusting red Georgia clay from his boots. William Carter, in his faded plaid shirt and worn cowboy hat, scanned the empty diner with a weary but kind expression. His tanned face, lined from years under the sun, softened as he met her gaze. He said, "Sorry to barge in so late," his voice low and steady like a calm river. "I need coffee to keep me going. Been driving since Augusta." Monica hesitated, her instinct to close up warring with the warmth in his tone. She said, "We're about done for the night," setting the broom against a table. "But I can get you a quick cup." "Appreciate it," William replied, easing onto a stool at the counter. He removed his hat, revealing graying hair at his temples, and rested it beside him. Monica moved to the coffee maker, her hands steady as she poured a steaming cup. She could still see his small hand clutching a crayon, drawing a sun with a lopsided smile. Derek's text. "He's better off with me now," clawed at her, a reminder of how the court saw her, a waitress, not a mother. She shook her head, pushing the thought away, and focused on the broom's rhythm. William watched her for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "You run this place alone this late?" he asked, glancing around the deserted diner. "Roberto's in the back," Monica said, nodding toward the kitchen. "He's probably scrubbing pans and cursing in Spanish by now." A small smile tugged at her lips, the first of the night. William chuckled, the sound warm and low. "Sounds like a good crew. You hold it together well." His compliment was simple, but it landed like a rare gift, cutting through the judgment she often felt in town. She shrugged, leaning the broom against the wall and doing what I must. Her fingers brushed the court notice in her pocket, a reflex she couldn't shake. William's eyes followed the movement, but he didn't pry. He just took another sip of coffee. When he finished, he stood reaching into his pocket. "What's the damage?" he asked, placing the empty cup on the counter. $3.50, Monica replied, wiping her hands on her apron. William set a crisp $20 bill beside the cup, sliding it toward her with a nod. "Keep the change," he said, his voice firm but kind for the late-night service. Monica's pride flared. "That's too much," she said, pushing the bill back. "I don't need. Everyone needs a little extra sometimes." William interrupted, his tone gentle, but unyielding. He tipped his hat, a gesture that felt both old-fashioned and sincere. "Thanks, Monica. You take care." He stepped toward the door, the bell jingling as he left. Monica stared at the bill, her fingers hovering over it. The generosity felt more than money, a spark of hope in a night heavy with doubt. She tucked the bill into her pocket alongside the court notice, the two papers pressed together like a promise and a prayer. As she locked the diner, the moonlit parking lot stretched before her, and she whispered, "For you, Jamal, I'm not giving up." At home in her small apartment, Monica sat on the edge of her bed, the court notice now on her nightstand. She opened a shoebox filled with Jamal's drawings, stick figures of them holding hands, a bright yellow sun overhead. Her fingers traced his wobbly signature, her heart aching with the distance between them. Tomorrow was another shift, another day closer to the hearing. She lay back still in her uniform and closed her eyes, willing herself to believe she could win. The pre-dawn sky hung heavy over Monica Harris's small plot of land, a patchwork of green tucked behind her apartment in rural Georgia. At 4:30 a.m., the air was cool and dew clung to her sneakers as she walked between rows of collard greens and tomatoes. Her braided hair tucked under a faded scarf. The rich and loamy earth carried the scent of her grandmother's legacy, a black farmer who had tilled this same soil decades ago, feeding neighbors when the town's stores turned her away. Monica gripped a hoe, its handle worn smooth by years of use, and began digging each strike, a quiet rebellion against the doubts that followed her as a single mother in a town quick to judge. This land was more than dirt. It was a promise kept to her grandmother, who taught her to plant, nurture, and endure. But maintaining it alone was a battle. Neighbors whispered that a waitress had no business farming, their words laced with skepticism about a black woman carving out her place in their rural world. Monica pushed the thought aside, her calloused hands steady as she worked. The court hearing loomed 3 weeks to prove she could provide for Jamal. This land, small as it was her proof, her stake in a future where her son could grow up rooted in their heritage. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, their edges tinged purple as dawn crept closer. A low rumble of thunder stirred the air, and Monica's heart sank. A storm could ruin her crops, weeks of work washed away in minutes. She muttered, "Not today," and quickened her pace, the hoe sinking deeper into the soil. The wind picked up, shaking the plants, and dry leaves skittered across the ground. She dropped the hoe and ran to the shed, a weathered structure her grandmother had built to grab tarps. The first raindrops fell cold and sharp as she dragged the heavy plastic toward the rows. "Need a hand," a voice called over the wind. Monica turned, startled, to see William Carter standing by the fence, his cowboy hat tilted against the gathering storm. His plaid shirt was already speckled with rain, and his boots sank into the muddy edge of her land. He'd been driving by, he later explained, and saw her struggling alone. "I've got it," Monica said, her voice tight as she wrestled with a tarp. The wind yanked it from her grip, and she stumbled, her fingers burning from the effort. William jumped the fence without hesitation, his movements steady despite the rising gale. "Grab that end," he said, taking the other side of the tarp. Together they stretched it over the collards, the rain pelting their backs. Thunder cracked overhead, and lightning split the sky, but William's calm focus steadied her. They moved to the next row, working in sync, securing the tarps as the storm roared. "More in the shed," Monica shouted, pointing. William nodded, following her to the small structure. Inside, the air smelled of old wood and earth, a faint echo of her grandmother's presence. They grabbed another tarp, their hands brushing briefly as they hauled it out. The rain was a torrent now, soaking Monica's scarf and William's hat. After 20 minutes, the last row was covered, and they ducked back into the shed, breathless and drenched. Monica sank onto a wooden bench, her wet clothes clinging to her skin. William stood by the door shaking water from his hat. She said, "You didn't have to do that," wringing out her scarf. "This isn't your fight." William replied that you could use a partner, leaning against the wall. His blue eyes scanned the shed, taking in the rusted tools and stacked crates. "This place means something to you." Monica nodded, her gaze distant. "My grandmother's. She grew everything here: collards, okra, sweet potatoes. Fed half the neighborhood when times were tight. Said the land was our freedom." She paused, the weight of her words settling. "I'm trying to keep it alive. For her. For Jamal." William's expression softened. "You're doing her proud. Not many could keep this up alone." "Doesn't feel like enough," Monica admitted, her voice low. "Not when the court's looking at my bank account instead of my heart." William crossed his arms, the rain drumming on the shed's zinc roof. "Courts get it wrong sometimes. But this land, it's proof you're building something real." He gestured outside. "Storm's tough, but it'll pass. Always does." Monica looked at him, his soaked shirt and steady gaze a quiet anchor in the chaos. For the first time that morning, she felt seen, not as a struggling waitress, but as a woman fighting for her legacy. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and sunlight pierced the clouds, casting slivers of gold through the shed's cracks. "Thanks," she said, standing for the help. William tipped his hat, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Anytime, Monica. I'll swing by the diner later. Might need another coffee." He stepped into the fading storm, leaving her with the scent of wet earth and a spark of hope. Monica returned to her land, checking the tarps. A few plants were bruised, but most stood firm. She picked up her hoe, the weight familiar, and resumed her work, the soil yielding under her hands. Jamal's face flashed in her mind, his smile, his trust. She'd fight for him, this land, and the life her grandmother dreamed for them. Rain drummed on the zinc roof of the shed, a steady rhythm that cocooned Monica Harris and William Carter as they caught their breath. The small structure tucked behind Monica's plot of land in rural Georgia smelled of damp wood and earth, its walls lined with her grandmother's old tools. Monica sat on a splintered bench, her wet scarf draped over her shoulders, the storm's chaos still echoing in her pulse. William leaned against a crate, his cowboy hat dripping, his plaid shirt clinging to his frame. The air between them held a quiet understanding forged by their shared effort to save her crops from the downpour. Monica's fingers traced the edge of the bench, her thoughts drifting to the court notice in her apartment, a stark reminder of the custody battle for her son Jamal. The storm outside felt like a mirror to her life, relentless, unpredictable, threatening to wash away everything she'd built. William's steady and unassuming presence was a contrast she hadn't expected. "You didn't have to stop," she said, breaking the silence. "Most people would have driven by." William shrugged, his blue eyes catching a sliver of light through the shed's cracks. "It didn't feel right, so I'm leaving you alone." He paused, glancing at the rows of covered collards visible through the open door. "This land's vital to you. I can see it." Monica nodded, her gaze distant. "That's all I've left of my grandmother. She taught me everything: how to plant and fight for what matters." Her voice softened, heavy with memory. "But it's hard. Folks around here don't think I belong on this land." After that, I threw myself into the farm. It started with 10 acres and was built into what it is now, but it's empty without them. He met her eyes, steady but vulnerable. "I see you fighting for your boy. I know what it's like to lose family. I don't want you to go through that alone." Monica's throat tightened. She hadn't expected his openness or how it mirrored hers. "It or housing Jamal," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's everything. My ex Derek is a lawyer with money and connections. We married young, thought love would be enough. But he wanted to control me, mold me into someone I wasn't. When I pushed back, he turned cold. Used his influence to take Jamal, saying I couldn't provide a stable home. She scoffed, bitterness creeping in. The court ate it up. Saw him as the better parent because he's got a big house and a fancy job. William's jaw tightened. That's not right. Money doesn't make a parent. Tell that to the judge. Monica said, her fingers clenching. As a single mother in this town, I'm already on trial. Every move I make, they're watching, waiting for me to fail. Derek knows it and uses it against me. William stepped closer, his boots scuffing the dirt floor. You're not failing. You're out here before dawn, keeping this land alive, fighting for your son. That's a strength, Monica. More than most have. She looked away, the weight of his words settling over her. The rain had slowed to a soft patter, and sunlight began to pierce the clouds, casting a warm glow through the shed. I don't feel strong, she admitted. Most days I'm just scared. Scared doesn't mean weak, William said. It means you've got something worth fighting for. He straightened, putting his hat back on. Storms passing. Let's check those tarps. They stepped outside, the air fresh with the scent of wet earth. Monica followed, her scarf still damp, but her steps felt lighter. Together, they inspected the rows, adjusting a loose tarp here, securing a stake there. The collards stood resilient, a testament to her grandmother's lessons and shared effort. William pointed to a patch of tomatoes, their leaves glistening. These'll make it. You did well. Monica managed a small smile, the first in days. We did well. William tipped his hat, his eyes warm. I'll be at the diner tonight. Save me a cup of coffee. She nodded, the hint of a connection sparking between them. Deal. As William returned to his truck, Monica picked up her hoe and the handle ground her. The sun broke through, painting the sky gold. She thought of Jamal, his smile, his trust. For him, for her grandmother, she'd keep fighting. The land beneath her feet felt like a promise, one she'd keep no matter what. The afternoon sun filtered through the smudged windows of Daisy's diner, casting long shadows across the linoleum floor. Monica Harris moved swiftly between tables, balancing a tray of coffee cups and plates of burgers. The lunch rush had brought a wave of truck drivers seeking refuge from the morning's rain, their boots tracking mud onto the floor she'd swept clean hours ago. Her braided hair was tucked under a fresh apron, but the weight of the court notice in her pocket felt heavier than ever. 3 weeks until the hearing. 3 weeks to prove she could be the mother Jamal needed. The memory of William's help in the storm lingered, a quiet spark of hope amidst her fears. The diner's bell jingled, and Monica's steps faltered. Derek strode in his tailored suit, gleaming under the fluorescent lights, starkly contrasting the worn booths and grease-stained menus. His polished shoes clicked against the floor, and his cold smile sent a chill down her spine. He scanned the diner with disdain, as if the place was beneath him. Monica's stomach twisted, her fingers tightening around the tray. She hadn't seen him in weeks, not since his last taunting text with Jamal's photo. Long time, Monica, Derek said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. His voice was smooth, but his eyes were sharp, cutting through her resolve, and still slinging coffee for pennies. Monica set the tray down, forcing her voice to stay steady. What do you want, Derek? She kept her distance, wiping her hands on her apron, her heart pounding. He leaned forward, his smile widening. Just checking on you. Jamal mentioned you to me the other day. Said he missed your cooking. His tone was mocking, each word a jab at her life. My new wife, Laura, is great with him. He's got a big room, toys, everything a kid needs. Can you compete with that? Monica's chest tightened, and the air in the diner suddenly seemed too thick. She thought of Jamal's gap-toothed smile, his small hand in hers. Derek's words were a calculated strike, preying on her fears as a single mother in a town where her paycheck measured her worth. He's my son, she said, her voice low but firm. That's all that matters. Derek laughed, a sharp sound that drew glances from nearby tables. Your son. Come on, Monica. The court's not blind. You're scraping by, working double shifts in that rundown apartment. What kind of life is that for Jamal? He leaned closer, his voice dropping. Give up the hearing. You can't win no money, no lawyer, nothing. The bell jingled again, and William Carter stepped inside, his cowboy hat tilted low. He paused, his blue eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. Monica's hands shook as she poured coffee for another table, Derek's words echoing in her mind. William approached the counter, his boots steady on the floor, and sat 2 stools away from Derek. He said, "Coffee, please," his voice calm but carrying an edge. Derek glanced at him, his lip curling. We're having a private conversation, cowboy. Monica set a cup in front of William, her hands unsteady. Derek reached across the counter, grabbing her wrist. I'm not done, Monica. You need to hear this. You're not getting him back. Let her go. William's voice was low, unwavering, cutting through the diner's hum. He stood, his frame imposing despite his calm demeanor. Now. Derek's grip tightened for a moment, his eyes flashing with defiance. Then he released her, standing and adjusting his tie with a smirk. This doesn't concern you, he said, turning back to Monica. Think about it, Monica. You're out of your depth. He tossed a dollar bill on the counter and walked out, the bell ringing sharply behind him. Monica's legs felt weak, her breath shallow. She gripped the counter, the sting of Derek's words mingling with the memory of his control during their marriage. William watched her, his expression unreadable but steady. You okay? He asked, his voice softening. She nodded, though her hands betrayed her trembling as she poured more coffee. He's always like that, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Thinks he can bully me into giving up. He's wrong. William said, his gaze firm. You're stronger than he knows. He reached into his pocket and slid a business card across the counter. Dr. Ellis, best lawyer I know. He owes me a favor from years back. Call him. He'll help with the hearing. Monica stared at the card, her pride warring with desperation. I can't afford. You don't have to. William interrupted. Just call him. Tell him I sent you. He stood, leaving another generous tip beside his untouched coffee. You're not alone in this, Monica. She watched him leave the card heavy in her hand. The diner buzzed around her, but for a moment it was just her and the possibility of fighting back. She slipped the card into her pocket next to the court notice and picked up her tray. Jamal's face flashed in her mind, his laugh, his trust. For him, she'd take the chance. The fluorescent lights of Monica Harris's small apartment flickered as she sat on the edge of her bed, the court notice unfolded on the nightstand. It was midnight, and the refrigerator's hum was the only sound on a quiet Georgia night. Her apron lay crumpled beside her, still carrying the faint scent of coffee from Daisy's diner. She held the business card William had given her hours earlier in her hand, its edges worn from her nervous fingers. It read, Dr. Richard Ellis, attorney at law, with a phone number in crisp black print. William's words echoed in her mind. He'll help with the hearing. But accepting help felt like admitting weakness, a crack in the armor she'd built as a single mother, fighting for her son Jamal. Monica's gaze drifted to a shoebox on the floor, filled with Jamal's drawings, crayon sketches of them together, a bright sun always shining above. She lifted one, a stick figure family under a tree, Jamal's wobbly handwriting, spelling mom, beside a figure with braided hair. Her chest ached with the memory of his laughter, now silenced by the distance Derek had forced between them. The court notice loomed. Its July 15th date was a countdown to her chance to prove she was enough. But Derek's taunts from the diner, his smug certainty that her job in life disqualified her, gnawed at her resolve. As a single mother in a town quick to judge, she knew the odds were stacked against her. She set the drawing down and picked up her phone, her thumb hovering over the numbers on the card. Pride told her to fight alone to scrape by, as she always had. But Jamal's face, his gap-toothed smile, pushed her forward. She dialed each ring, tightening the knot in her stomach. A woman's voice answered, calm and professional. Dr. Ellis's office. How may I help you? Monica swallowed, her voice steady despite her nerves. Hi, I'm Monica Harris. William Carter gave me this number. He said Dr. Ellis could help with a custody case. A pause. Then the woman's tone warmed. William sent you? The doctor's booked tomorrow, but he'll make time. Can you come at 9 a.m.? Monica glanced at the clock. 12:47 a.m. The diner opened at 10. She could make it work. Yes, that's perfect. Thank you. See you then, Ms. Harris, the woman said before hanging up. Monica exhaled, the card still in her hand. It felt like a lifeline, fragile but real, pulling her toward a future where Jamal could be hers again. She lay back still in her clothes and closed her eyes, the weight of the day pressing down but not breaking her. The next morning, Monica stepped into Daisy's diner at 6 a.m., her scarf tied tightly around her braided hair. The breakfast shift was quiet, and only a few early regulars sipped coffee at the counter. Roberto, flipping pancakes in the kitchen, said, You're early, Monica. Everything okay? She nodded, tying her apron. Got an appointment before my shift. Need to leave by 8:30. Roberto raised an eyebrow but didn't pry. Get 'em. I'll cover if you're late. His grin was a small comfort, a reminder of her few allies. By 8:45, Monica was in Dr. Ellis's office, a small but tidy space in downtown Georgia. The air conditioning was sharp, raising goosebumps on her arms. Dr. Ellis, a short man with round glasses and gray hair, greeted her with a firm handshake. William spoke highly of you, he said, gesturing to a chair. Tell me about your case. Monica sat, her hands clasped tightly. My ex, Derek, has temporary custody of our son, Jamal. The hearing's in 3 weeks. He's a lawyer, has money, and says, I can't provide a stable home because I'm a waitress. Her voice wavered, but she pressed on. I've got photos from when we were married, bruises he left. I never showed anyone, but I kept them. Dr. Ellis's eyes sharpened. That's a start. Evidence of past abuse could shift things. Anything else? Messages, threats. Monica pulled out her phone and showed Derek's texts, including the one with Jamal's photo and its cruel caption. He's been sending these trying to break me. The lawyer jotted notes, his pen quick. Good. Harassment strengthens your case. I'll need those photos, and we'll dig into his finances. Men like him often leave a trail. He leaned back, his gaze steady. William doesn't call in favors usually. When he does, I listen. We'll fight this, Ms. Harris. Monica's throat tightened, hope battling doubt. I can't pay much, she admitted, her pride stinging. Dr. Ellis waved a hand. William covered that. My debt to him goes back years. He helped me start this practice. Focus on your son. We'll handle the rest. She nodded, relief washing over her, tempered by the weight of what lay ahead. Thank you, she said, her voice soft but firm. The morning sun warmed her face as she left the office, and she clutched the court notice in her pocket. She felt a spark of possibility for the first time, kindled by William's trust and Dr. Ellis's resolve. Back at the diner, Monica tied on her apron, the lunch rush already building. She moved through the tables, pouring coffee, her mind on Jamal. Now tucked in her wallet, William's card was a reminder that she wasn't alone. She'd fight for her son step by step, and this was the first. The air in Dr. Richard Ellis's office was sharp with the chill of overzealous air conditioning, starkly contrasting the humid Georgia morning outside. Monica Harris sat in a stiff chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her braided hair tucked neatly under a scarf. The lawyer's desk was cluttered with files, but her focus was on the photos she'd brought. Faded images from her marriage to Derek, showing bruises on her arms, evidence of his temper she'd hidden for years. Her heart pounded as she recounted the moments behind each photo, her voice steady despite the memories. The custody hearing was 2 weeks away, and these images were her shield against Derek's claim that she was an unfit mother. Dr. Ellis, his gray hair catching the light through the window, scribbled notes. He said these are powerful, Monica, peering over his round glasses. Combined with his texts, we're building a strong case. We'll show the court who he is. Monica nodded her fingers, brushing the court notice in her pocket. The weight of William's support, his introduction to Dr. Ellis, lingered like a quiet anchor. But before she could respond, the office door swung open. A young woman, likely a teacher, stepped in her face, apologetic. "Sorry, Dr. Ellis, but someone insisted on seeing Ms. Harris." Jamal burst through the doorway, his small frame a blur as he ran to Monica. "Mommy!" he cried, throwing his arms around her. His gap-toothed smile was bright, but his eyes held a flicker of worry. Monica's breath caught her arms wrapping tightly around him, the familiar scent of his strawberry shampoo filling her senses. She hadn't seen him in weeks, not since Derek had restricted her visits. "Jamal, baby," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "What are you doing here?" he said. "My teacher let me come." His voice muffled against her shoulder. "I made you something." He pulled a crumpled drawing from his backpack, a crayon sketch of them holding hands under a bright sun. "I miss you, Mommy. It's not the same at Dad's." Monica's heart ached, her eyes stinging as she smoothed his hair. "Tell me, sweetheart, what's it like there?" She kept her tone gentle, though dread coiled in her chest. Jamal hesitated, his small fingers clutching her sleeve. "Dad's always working. Laura, she's nice sometimes, but she doesn't play with me. It's quiet, and I don't have my drawings or books. I do them at home." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I want to stay with you. Can I?" Monica's throat tightened, the weight of his words cutting deeper than Derek's taunts. She glanced at Dr. Ellis, who nodded encouragingly. "Soon, baby," she said, cupping his face. "I'm fighting for you, okay? I promise." The door opened again, and Derek stormed in his tailored suit, pristine, but his expression furious. "Jamal, what are you doing here?" He snapped, his voice sharp enough to make the boy flinch. "You're supposed to be at school." Monica stood, positioning herself between Derek and Jamal. "He's fine, Derek. He wanted to see me." "This is unacceptable," Derek growled, his eyes narrowing. "You're manipulating him, Monica, and turning him against me." "I'm not," she said, her voice firm, despite the tremble in her hands. "He's telling me how he feels. You should listen." Derek's face reddened, but before he could respond, William Carter appeared in the doorway, his cowboy hat tilted low. He'd been waiting in the hall, driving Monica to the appointment. His presence was calm, but commanding, his blue eyes fixed on Derek. "Everything all right here?" he asked, his tone even, but laced with warning. Derek scoffed, adjusting his tie. "This is none of your business, farmer. Stay out of it." William stepped closer, his boots steady on the polished floor. "It's Monica's business, and I'm here for her. Let the boy speak." Dr. Ellis cleared his throat, standing. "Mr. Harris, I suggest you leave. This is a private meeting. His school approved your son's presence." Derek glared, his jaw tight, then grabbed Jamal's arm. "Come on, we're going." Jamal pulled back, clinging to Monica. "I want to stay with Mommy," he said, his voice small but clear. Monica's heart swelled, tears prickling her eyes. Derek hesitated, his grip loosening. "Fine," he snapped, releasing Jamal. "But this isn't over, Monica." He stormed out the door, slamming behind him. Monica knelt, hugging Jamal tightly. "It's okay, baby. Just a little longer. She kissed his forehead, returning him to the teacher, who promised to get him to school. As they left, Monica sank into the chair, her hands shaking. Dr. Ellis adjusted his glasses. That was telling. Jamal's words could sway the judge. "We'll document this." Monica nodded, her gaze on the drawing Jamal left behind. William sat beside her, his presence a quiet reassurance. "He's strong like you," he said, his voice soft. She managed a small smile, clutching the drawing. "I hope so." The fight for Jamal felt closer now, but no less daunting. With William's support and Dr. Ellis's strategy, she felt a flicker of strength enough to keep going. The sun climbed high over rural Georgia, its warmth cutting through the morning mist, as Monica Harris stepped out of Dr. Ellis's office, her scarf loose around her braided hair. Jamal's drawing, clutched in her hand, felt like a talisman, his small voice echoing in her heart. "I want to stay with you." The custody hearing was 2 weeks away, and the photos of past bruises now in Dr. Ellis's care were a step toward reclaiming her son. But Derek's angry exit lingered, a reminder of the battle ahead. Monica's steps faltered on the sidewalk, the weight of hope and fear pressing down. William Carter waited by his dusty blue pickup truck, his cowboy hat tilted against the sun. His plaid shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, and his blue eyes met hers with quiet reassurance. "You did well in there," he said, opening the passenger door. "Ellis knows his stuff." Monica slid into the truck, the leather seat warm under her. "I hope it's enough," she said, her voice soft. "Derek's got money, lawyers, everything I don't." William started the engine, the truck rumbling to life. "He doesn't have what you've got. Heart, grit, a boy who loves you." He glanced at her, his smile faint but steady. "Come with me. I want to show you something." Monica hesitated, her shift at Daisy's diner starting in an hour. "I need to get back. Roberto's got you covered," William said, pulling onto the road. "He owes me a favor for some produce I sent his way. You've got the morning." The drive was quiet, the Georgia countryside unfolding in green waves. Monica stared out the window, Jamal's drawing folded in her lap. William's confidence was a lifeline, but doubt gnawed at her. Could she stand up to Derek's influence, to a system that often saw her as less? The truck slowed, turning onto a gravel path lined with towering oaks. A wooden sign read, "Hope Farm," and fields stretched to the horizon, dotted with grazing horses and workers tending crops. William parked near a sprawling farmhouse, its white paint weathered but proud. "Welcome to my place," he said, stepping out. 200 acres, give or take. Started with 10, built it up after everything. Monica followed, her sneakers crunching on the gravel. The air carried the scent of fresh hay and blooming wildflowers. "You live here?" she asked, taking in the vastness of the land. William said, "Many employees, and I led her." William said, 25 employees to lead home. "But it's more than that. It's a chance to build something lasting." He stopped at the barn, its redwood faded but sturdy, with expansive windows, letting in light streams. "This is what I wanted you to see." Monica peered inside the space, echoing with potential. Dust motes danced in the sunlight, and the concrete floor was swept clean. "What's it for?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. William leaned against the doorframe, his hat casting a shadow. "A pie shop. Your pie shop. Roberto's been raving about your collared pies, saying they're the best he's ever tasted. This barn's sitting empty, perfect for a counter tables and a kitchen. You could make it your own." Monica froze, her breath catching. A pie shop. The idea sparked memories of her grandmother's kitchen, the smell of buttery crusts and spiced greens. Those recipes were her heritage, a way to honor her family and provide for Jamal. But doubt crept in. "I can't afford this, William. Rent, equipment, time, I'm barely keeping up now." It's a partnership, he said, his voice firm but kind. Not charity. I cover the startup, you run it. We split the profits. You've got the talent, Monica. I've seen how you care for your land, your son. This could be your way forward. She walked through the barn, her steps echoing. The idea was a dream she hadn't dared to dream, a business rooted in her grandmother's legacy, a chance to prove herself beyond the diner. But the risks loomed large. What if I fail? She asked, turning to him. What if Derek uses this against me in court? William stepped closer, his eyes steady. You won't fail. And if Derek tries anything, we'll fight it together. You're not just a waitress, Monica. You're a woman who keeps going no matter what. That's what this place needs. Monica's fingers tightened around Jamal's drawing. She imagined him here helping roll dough, his laughter filling the barn. The thought warmed her, but fear lingered. Fear of overreaching, of losing what little she had. I need to think about it, she said quietly but firmly. No pressure, William said, pulling keys from his pocket. Just know the offer's there. He led her back to the truck, the sun climbing higher, casting long shadows across Hope Farm. Monica glanced back at the barn, its silhouette promising something new. For Jamal, for herself, she wanted to believe it was possible. As they drove back to the diner, Monica's mind churned. The barn, the pies, the future was a vision she could almost touch. But the custody battle, Derek's threats, and the weight of proving herself in a town that doubted her held her back. William's quiet presence beside her was a reminder that she didn't have to face it alone. She tucked Jamal's drawing into her pocket, her resolve hardening. She'd find a way step by step for her son. The courthouse in rural Georgia stood gray and imposing, its stone steps worn smooth by years of footsteps. Monica Harris climbed them, her scarf tied neatly over her braided hair, her second-hand suit itching at the collar. Her heart pounded with the weight of the custody hearing now just days away. In her purse, Jamal's drawing, a stick-figure family under a bright sun, felt like a quiet promise. Dr. Richard Ellis walked beside her, his leather briefcase swinging, his round glasses glinting in the morning light. We've got this, he said, his voice steady. Your evidence is solid. Monica nodded, clutching the strap of her purse. The memory of Jamal's words in Dr. Ellis's office. I want to stay with you fueled her resolve, but doubt lingered. Derek's wealth and influence loomed large, and as a single mother in a town quick to judge, she knew the court often favored money over heart. William Carter's offer of a pie shop at Hope Farm flickered in her mind, a dream she hadn't yet accepted, but it gave her hope for a future beyond the diner. Inside, the hearing room was smaller than she'd imagined, its wooden benches creaking under the weight of spectators. Derek sat at the front, his tailored suit pristine, flanked by a lawyer whose briefcase matched his own. His cold smile sent a shiver down Monica's spine, but she kept her eyes on Dr. Ellis. The judge, a woman with gray hair and a stern gaze, entered, her robes rustling. Case 22847. She announced custody of Jamal Harris. Dr. Ellis stood, his voice clear. Your Honor, we present evidence of Ms. Harris's stability and Mr. Harris's unsuitability. He handed over a folder, its contents, meticulously prepared photos of Monica's bruises from their marriage, Derek's threatening texts, and a contract registering her as a partner in a pie shop at Hope Farm. Ms. Harris is building a business proving her financial growth, he said, glancing at Monica. She's a dedicated mother. Derek's lawyer rose, his tone sharp. Objection. This contract is recent and likely fabricated to sway the court. Ms. Harris is a waitress with minimal income. Dr. Ellis countered calmly, producing notarized documents. The contract is legitimate, signed by William Carter, a respected local farmer. Furthermore, we have evidence of Mr. Harris's harassment. He projected texts on a screen, including Derek's cruel message, "He's better off with me now." The room grew quiet, the judge's pen scratching as she reviewed the evidence. Monica's hands clasped tightly under the table, her breath shallow. She felt William's presence in the back row, his cowboy hat low, his steady gaze a quiet anchor. The judge looked up, her expression unreadable. "Based on the evidence, I grant temporary joint custody. Jamal will spend 1 week with each parent until the final hearing." Monica's heart leaped, a sob catching in her throat. She could see Jamal again, hold him, bring him home. Derek's face tightened, but he said nothing, his lawyer whispering urgently beside him. The judge's gavel fell, and the room emptied, Monica's legs trembling as she stood. Dr. Ellis smiled. "First victory, Monica. We'll keep pushing." Outside, William approached, his boots scuffing the courthouse floor. "You did it," he said, his voice warm. "Told you Ellis was good." Monica managed a smile, tears brimming. "I get to see Jamal tonight. I can't believe it." "Let's pick him up," William said, leading her to his truck. They drove to Jamal's school, Monica's heart racing with anticipation. When Jamal ran to her, his small arms wrapping around her, she knelt, breathing in his familiar scent. "You're coming home with me, baby," she whispered. "Really?" Jamal's eyes sparkled. He glanced at William, curious. "Who's he? Mommy?" "A friend," Monica said, squeezing his hand, a good one. They drove to Hope Farm, Jamal's excitement filling the truck as he pointed at horses in the distance. Monica showed him the barn, its space glowing with possibility. She said, "This could be a pie shop," her voice soft, like Grandma's recipes. Jamal grinned. "Collard pies?" Monica nodded, her heart swelling. But as they left the barn, a police car pulled up, its lights flashing in the fading daylight. An officer stepped out holding a document. "Monica Harris," he said, his tone formal. "Mr. Harris filed a trespassing complaint. You have no right to be here." Monica's stomach dropped, Jamal's hand tightening in hers. "What?" she whispered, her voice shaking. William stepped forward, his voice firm. "She's my partner. This is my property. She's authorized to be here." The officer frowned, scanning the document. "The court order says otherwise. I need you to leave until this is sorted." Jamal's eyes filled with tears. "Mommy, what's happening?" "It's okay, baby," Monica said, her voice breaking. She knelt, hugging him tightly. "We'll fix this." William's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "I'll drive you home." As they left, Monica looked back at the barn, its promise now shadowed by Derek's retaliation. Jamal clung to her in the truck, and William's quiet presence steadied her. She wouldn't let Derek win. Not now. Not ever. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Monica Harris's apartment, casting stripes across the kitchen table, where she sat with a cup of cold coffee. Her braided hair was loose, her scarf draped over a chair, and Jamal's drawing, a stick figure family under a bright sun, lay beside her. The temporary joint custody win felt fragile after Derek's trespassing complaint forced them from Hope Farm the previous evening. Jamal slept in the next room, his soft snores a reminder of her week with him. But a new threat loomed. Dr. Richard Ellis had called at dawn, warning of an emergency hearing. Derek was now alleging parental alienation, claiming Monica was using William to replace him as Jamal's father. Monica's fingers tightened around her mug, the weight of Derek's tactics pressing down. As a single mother in rural Georgia, she knew the court often scrutinized her more harshly, and her every action was judged through a lens of bias, still unaccepted. The pie shop proposal at Hope Farm flickered in her mind, a dream that felt distant under Derek's relentless attacks. Her phone buzzed with a text from William. "I'm here if you need me." Ellis's office, 3 p.m. His steady support was a lifeline, but it also stirred something more profound, a warmth she wasn't ready to name. At 2:30 p.m., Monica arrived at Dr. Ellis's office, her second-hand suit pressed, but stiff. Jamal was with Roberto at Daisy's diner, which is safe now. Dr. Ellis, his round glasses perched low, spread photos across his desk, images of Monica and William at Hope Farm, her smiling as he adjusted a tarp, his hand brushing hers in the rain. "Derek's team got these," he said, his voice grim. "They're claiming you're introducing a new father figure to alienate Jamal." Monica's stomach churned. "That's not true. William's helping me, that's all." But her cheeks warmed, betraying the truth she'd been avoiding. William's kindness, his belief in her, had grown into something more, and Derek was twisting it against her. William arrived, his cowboy hat in hand, and his plaid shirt slightly rumpled from farm work. He studied the photos, his jaw tight. "He said someone was following you," his voice low with anger. "That's not legal." Dr. Ellis nodded, pulling out more documents. "Exactly. It's stalking, and it helps us." He revealed financial records, large deposits in Derek's accounts, with unclear origins. These suggest he's hiding income, possibly to dodge taxes. It's leverage. He looked at Monica. "We need you and William at the hearing. But be careful, Derek wants to prove there's a relationship." Monica's heart raced. She glanced at William, whose eyes were fixed on the photos. "Is there?" Dr. Ellis asked, his tone neutral. Monica's throat tightened. "No," she said, her voice barely audible. "We're friends." The word felt wrong, heavy with what she wouldn't admit. William's gaze flickered, but he said nothing. His silence a quiet wound. At the courthouse, the hearing room buzzed with tension. Derek sat with 3 lawyers, his tailored suit gleaming, his smirk sharp. Jamal, allowed to attend, sat near Monica, his small hand clutching hers. The judge, a woman with a stern gaze, called the case. Derek's lawyer projected the photos, his voice dripping with accusation. "Ms. Harris is replacing the father with this man, causing emotional harm to the child." Dr. Ellis stood, his tone calm. "Your Honor, these photos were obtained illegally by private investigators hired without court approval." He displayed evidence of Derek stalking, grainy images of men tailing Monica. Furthermore, financial records show unreported income, suggesting Mr. Harris is unfit. The room fell silent, Derek's face paling. Jamal tugged Monica's sleeve, his voice small. "Mommy, Dad yells a lot. I don't like it there. I want you." His words, clear and unprompted, echoed in the quiet. The judge's pen paused, her eyes softening. "Young man, thank you for speaking." She turned to Derek. "Mr. Harris, this evidence raises concerns. The injunction for parental alienation is denied. I'm ordering an investigation into your activities." Monica's breath caught relief flooding her. Derek stood, his voice tight. "This is absurd." But the judge's gavel silenced him. He stormed out, his lawyers scrambling behind. Outside, Monica hugged Jamal, tears streaming down her face. William stood nearby, his hat low. "You were amazing," she said to Jamal, then turned to William. "Thank you for everything." He nodded, his eyes searching hers. "I meant what I said, Monica. You're not alone." He hesitated, then added, "But if I'm making this more challenging, please tell me." Monica's heart pounded. "You're not," she said softly, her hand brushing his. "I'm just scared of losing Jamal, of trusting again, of the feelings stirring between them." William squeezed her hand gently. "Me too. But we'll figure it out." His touch lingered, a promise unspoken. Monica held Jamal close, the weight of the victory tempered by the battle ahead. She had her son and William's strength beside her for now. The morning sun bathed Hope Farm in a golden glow, its rays glinting off the freshly painted barn that now housed Monica's pie shop. Monica Harris stood at the entrance, her braided hair tucked under a new apron, embroidered with Monica's pies in cursive, a logo inspired by Jamal's drawings. 2 months had passed since the court denied Derek's parental alienation claim, and the investigation into his finances had quieted his attacks. Under the joint custody ruling, Monica's week with Jamal had been filled with laughter and late-night baking, his small hands helping shape her grandmother's collard pie recipe. Today was the shop's grand opening, a milestone that felt like a defiance of every doubt cast upon her. Inside, the barn was transformed. Light wood counters gleamed, rustic tables held wildflower centerpieces, and the air carried the warm scent of baked crusts and spiced greens. Jamal darted between tables, arranging napkins, his gap-toothed grin wide. William Carter, his cowboy hat resting on a hook, oversaw workers unloading supplies, his plaid shirt rolled up as he carried a crate of apples. From Daisy's diner, Roberto had spent the night baking, his contributions stacked in neat boxes behind the counter. Monica smoothed her apron, her heart racing. The pie shop was more than a business. It was a reclaiming of her grandmother's legacy, a way to prove she could provide for Jamal in a town that often questioned her worth. The weight of the custody battle still lingered, the final hearing looming, but today was hers. She glanced at William, his steady presence, a quiet anchor. His belief in her had turned an empty barn into this, a place where her dreams took root. "Ready, Mommy?" Jamal asked, tugging her hand. He wore a small apron matching hers, his eyes bright with pride. "Ready," baby Monica said, squeezing his hand. She looked at William, who nodded with a warm smile. "Time to open," he said, handing her a key. "This is your moment." At 9 a.m., Jamal pushed open the barn door, sunlight flooding in. "Welcome to my mom's shop," he called, his voice ringing with excitement. Cars lined the gravel path, drawn by Roberto's word of mouth at the diner. Customers streamed in, truck drivers, farmers, locals, their chatter filling the air. An older woman bit into a collard pie, her eyes closing. "This takes me back," she said. "My mama made pies like this." Monica smiled, serving coffee. "It's my grandmother's recipe. She fed half the town with it." The woman's nod felt like validation, a bridge to her heritage. Half the pies were gone by noon, the cash register chiming steadily. Jamal refilled coffee cups, his small frame weaving through the crowd. William leaned against the counter, watching Monica work. "Told you," he said, his voice low. "You're a natural." She laughed, the sound light, despite her nerves. "Couldn't have done it without you." Their eyes met, a spark of something unspoken passing between them. A familiar car pulled up outside, its sleek black finish out of place among the dusty pickups. Derek stepped out, his tailored suit crisp, his expression unreadable. Monica froze, her hand tightening around a coffee pot. William's shoulders tensed, but he murmured, "Your call." "Let him in," Monica said, her voice steady. She wouldn't let him ruin this day. Derek entered, pausing at the door as he scanned the bustling shop. Jamal ran to him, hesitant, but smiling. "Dad, look, Mommy's shop." He tugged Derek toward the counter. Derek's gaze softened briefly as he looked at Jamal, then hardened as he met Monica's eyes. "One slice," he said, his tone clipped. "Collard." Monica served him in silence, her hands steady. Derek took a bite, his expression shifting. "Just like your grandmother's," he said quietly, almost to himself. He set the plate down, his voice softer. "You did well here, Monica." She nodded, her throat tight. "Thank you." It wasn't an apology, but a retreat, a crack in his armor. Derek hugged Jamal, lingering longer than usual, then left a generous tip and walked out. Monica exhaled, the tension easing. Jamal returned to her side, his hand in hers. He liked it, Mommy, he said proudly. He did, she said, ruffling his hair. The afternoon blurred with customers' laughter and the clink of plates. Roberto flipped on string lights outside as the sun dipped low, casting a warm glow. Jamal fell asleep at a table surrounded by crayon sketches of pies. William picked him up, settling him on a bench. Our junior baker's worn out, he joked. Monica laughed, cleaning the counter. It's been quite a day. The first of many, William said, his eyes warm. He took her hand, his calluses meeting hers. You built this, Monica. I'm proud of you. She looked around the tables, the logo, the lingering scent of pies. For the first time she felt rooted, not just in the land, but in a future she'd made. Thank you, she said, her voice soft, for believing in me. William squeezed her hand. Always. The sky outside glowed orange, and Monica felt a peace she hadn't known in years. She was home. The late afternoon sun dipped low over Hope Farm, painting the Georgia sky in hues of orange and pink. Monica Harris stood outside her pie shop, the barn's wooden counters still warm from a day of bustling customers. Her apron, embroidered with Monica's pies, was dusted with flour, and her braided hair was loose, catching the breeze. The opening day had been a triumph, with collard pies and apple tarts flying off the shelves, each bite a tribute to her grandmother's legacy. Jamal played nearby, his small frame darting through the grass, a crayon sketch of a pie clutched in his hand. The joint custody arrangement allowed her this week with him, and his laughter filled the air, a sound that anchored her heart. William Carter leaned against a fence post, his cowboy hat tilted back, his plaid shirt rolled up from helping move tables. The string lights Roberto had strung up glowed softly, casting a warm halo over the barn. Monica watched Jamal chase a firefly, her mind drifting to the final custody hearing set for the following week. Dr. Richard Ellis had called earlier, his voice confident. The investigation into Derek's finances is damning. We're close to full custody. The words were a lifeline, but Monica's journey through Derek's cruelty, systemic doubts and fears made her wary of hoping too soon. William approached, his boots crunching on the gravel. He's happy, he said, nodding toward Jamal. Happier than I've seen him. Monica smiled, her eyes on her son. He loves it here. The horses, the open space, it's what I always wanted for him. She paused, her voice softening. What my grandmother wanted. William's gaze was steady, his blue eyes warm. You've given him that. And more. He gestured to the barn, its logo glowing under the lights. This place, it's yours, Monica. You built it. She shook her head, her fingers brushing the apron. We built it. You saw something in me I couldn't see. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of gratitude. William's belief had carried her through the darkest moments. Derek's taunts, the court's scrutiny, the town's whispers. As a single mother, she'd faced a world that doubted her worth, but she felt whole here with William and Jamal. They spread a blanket near the stable, the shade cool under an old oak. Jamal bounded over, holding a slice of apple pie. Mommy, can we eat now? He asked, his grin wide. Only if you share, Monica teased, ruffling his hair. They sat together, the pie's cinnamon warmth mingling with the scent of grass. Jamal took a bite, his eyes sparkling. It's like Grandma's. William chuckled, taking a slice. Your grandma must have been a genius. He glanced at Monica, his smile softening. Runs in the family. Jamal giggled, leaning against Monica. William, will you stay for dinner tomorrow? Mommy makes the best spaghetti. Monica's cheeks warmed, but William nodded, ruffling Jamal's hair. Wouldn't miss it, champ. As Jamal ate, Monica's phone buzzed. She hesitated, expecting Derek's latest jab, but it was Dr. Ellis. Monica, he said, his voice brisk. The court just ruled. Full custody is yours. Derek's investigation turned up enough to sway the judge. You won. Monica's breath caught tears welling. Full custody, she whispered, her hand trembling. Jamal's mine. All yours, Dr. Ellis confirmed. I'll send the paperwork. Congratulations. She hung up, tears streaming down her face. Jamal looked up worried. Mommy, what's wrong? She knelt, pulling him close. Nothing's wrong, baby. You're staying with me. Forever. Jamal's arms wrapped around her, his small body shaking with joy. William stood, his eyes glistening. You did it, he said, his voice thick. You fought and you won. Monica stood wiping her tears. We did it. She corrected, her gaze meeting his. The weight of the past months. Derek's control, the court's bias, her doubts fell away. She stepped closer, her hand finding William's. I couldn't have done this without you. William's calloused fingers closed around hers, his touch steady. You're stronger than you know, Monica. He hesitated, then leaned in his lips, brushing hers in a gentle kiss. It was soft, tentative, but it promised something new. Monica's heart raced, not with fear, but with certainty. She kissed him back, her hand resting on his chest. Jamal tugged her sleeve, grinning. Ew, Mommy. But his giggle betrayed his delight. Monica laughed, pulling him into a hug with William. The sky deepened to purple, the lights twinkling above the barn. The pie shop stood as a testament to her resilience, where her grandmother's recipes lived, where Jamal could grow, and where she'd found a home. William's arm around her felt like a future, not just a dream. As they sat back on the blanket, Jamal yawning beside them, Monica rested her head on William's shoulder. Grandma always said, you have to lose something to find what matters, she murmured. She was right, William said, kissing her forehead. The stars emerged, and Monica closed her eyes, peace settling over her. She had Jamal her shop, and William a family found against all odds.